Did you know that there are hidden pathways into the heart of a man? Not through logic, not through grand gestures, but through the simple act of touch. I'm not talking about seduction games or manipulative tricks. I'm talking about something far more profound. Something that touches not just the body, but the very soul. My name is Walter, and after more than 30 years of studying relationships, intimacy, and the psychology of love, I stumbled upon a truth that most people never discover. A truth so powerful that once you understand it, once you feel it, a man can carry the memory of your presence inside him for the rest of his life. And tonight, you and I are going to walk into this secret world together. We'll uncover 7 sacred places on a man's body, not just physical spots, but doors. Doors that lead straight into his subconscious. And when you touch them with true intention, you awaken something he didn't even know was there. Stay with me until the very end, because I will reveal the 7th place, the most overlooked, the most powerful, the one that rewrites a man's memory of you forever. Even the most rational, closed-off, emotionally armored man cannot resist the power of this final gesture. But before we get there, I need to take you back, because this all began with a story. A few months ago, a woman came into my office. She was 52, beautiful, intelligent, accomplished, but her eyes were heavy with sadness. She sat down and whispered, "Walter, I've been married for 20 years. I love my husband, but it feels like he doesn't see me anymore. I feel invisible to him." Have you ever felt that? That aching loneliness, even when you're lying next to someone you love? Her words pierced me, not because they were unique, but because they weren't. I've heard them hundreds of times. Different faces, different names, but the same quiet desperation. And then she told me something unusual. She recalled a memory from decades ago, back when she and her husband were newly engaged. She described a moment when he kissed her right at the base of her neck. And she said, he still talks about that kiss, even now, as if it was burned into him. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her story gnawed at me. I thought about Carl Jung, about archetypes, and the unconscious mind. Could a single touch really reach into the depths of memory, into a man's shadow world, and stay there forever? I began digging. I revisited old cases, reviewed my notes, pieced together fragments from years of therapy sessions. And the more I studied, the more a pattern began to appear. There are places on a man's body that are not just physical. They are keys. Keys that unlock doors into his emotions, his history, his deepest self. The problem is, most women don't know these places exist, and even men themselves are blind to them. Why? Because men are taught from childhood to carry armor, to be strong, in control, untouchable. They grow up believing they must protect, provide, perform, and somewhere along the way, they forget how to receive tenderness. But here's the truth. Beneath all that armor, every man still carries a hidden child, a part of him that longs to be seen, held, cherished. And if you know how to reach it, you will never be forgotten. Tonight, I'll show you how. The first place is the back of the neck. Not just anywhere, but right where the spine meets the base of the skull.
Do you know why this spot is so powerful? Because it's what I call a blind zone. It's the one place he can't see. He can't protect it, can't guard it, can't anticipate it. One of my patients, a 48-year-old engineer, told me something fascinating. His wife had a habit of leaning over and kissing his neck while he worked at the computer. And he said, "Walter, it's the strangest thing. Every time she does that, my walls collapse. I can't explain it, but it feels like she has access to a part of me I didn't even know existed." He was right. The neck is where men carry the invisible burdens of life, the responsibility, the pressure, the silent weight of always being the strong one. And when a woman touches him there, she is whispering into his subconscious, "You don't have to be perfect with me. You can take the armor off." The second place is even more surprising. It's the inner side of the arm, between the elbow and the armpit. Why here? Because this is one of the most vulnerable zones of the body. The skin is thin, the arteries close to the surface. In ancient times, this was a fatal weakness. To touch here is to awaken something primal. One of my patients told me how one evening her husband came home angry and stressed from work. Instead of interrogating him, instead of asking what was wrong, she simply lifted his arm and kissed that tender spot. She said that within seconds, his entire face softened, and later that night, for the first time in months, he opened up. He told her what he truly felt. That's the magic of this touch. It bypasses words. It speaks to the unconscious, awakening what Jung called the archetype of the lover, the part of a man that longs to be loved without having to perform. The third place is the back, but not just anywhere. It's the space between the shoulder blades, along the spine. Think about it. The back is where men carry the world, bills, responsibilities, the constant demand to be the protector. Every silent burden he never talks about, it's stored there. I remember a 55-year-old man in couples therapy. He said, "Every time my wife kisses my back after work, it feels like someone is literally lifting a stone off me. I can finally breathe." That's not just romance. That's healing. And then we come to a place almost no one thinks of. The eyelids. Yes, the closed eyes. Why? Because the eyes are a man's shield. Through them, he guards the world, stays alert, maintains control. When he closes them in your presence, he's trusting you completely. A kiss on the eyelids tells his subconscious, "You are safe here. You don't have to watch the world. You can rest." One woman told me after a fight with her husband, instead of yelling, she asked him to close his eyes and kissed each eyelid gently. She said that she watched his entire face melt as though she had found a secret doorway into his soul. And we're only halfway through, because the remaining spots take us even deeper, to places where passion, memory, and vulnerability collide. But before I tell you about the next one, I want you to imagine this. What would happen if tonight you chose not to argue, not to explain, not to beg for his attention, but instead touched one of these forgotten doors into his soul? How would he look at you tomorrow? How would he remember you years from now? That's the journey we're on. And in the next breath, we'll step into the fifth place, a spot that holds the tension between desire and tenderness. But to understand it, you must first realize what men secretly crave most and why they almost never admit it.
We left off at the edge of something intimate, the moment where desire and tenderness intertwine, because the fifth place is the waist. Not the obvious, overtly sensual part of the body, but the tender curve where the ribs meet the oblique muscles. Why here? Because this is the balance point between body and heart, between strength and vulnerability. It's where his vital organs hide behind fragile bones. When you kiss him there, you aren't just showing desire. You're saying, "I want you, but I also want to protect you." You are allowed to be strong and fragile. One of my patients told me, "Walter, When my wife kisses me there, I feel something strange. It's not just sexual, it's deeper. It's like she sees me not only as her man, but as a human who sometimes needs shelter. That's what this spot does. It blurs the line between lover and guardian, between passion and care. Now, the sixth place. And this one is different, because it's not just about the body, it's about the mind. The temples, that sensitive area pulsing with blood, throbbing with thought. This is where years of decisions, responsibilities, and silent worries gather. Every sleepless night, every deadline, every burden carried silently. It all echoes here. Have you noticed how some men rub their temples when they're stressed? It's the body's way of saying, "Please, let me rest." One woman came to me, heartbroken, because her husband was slipping further away emotionally. I told her to stop chasing him with words and try a different language, the language of touch. She began kissing his temples in quiet moments, while he read, while he sat in silence. And within a week, she told me, it's like a door opened. He started speaking again. He started being again. That's because kissing the temples doesn't just soothe the body. It tells his weary mind, you don't have to solve everything right now. You are safe with me. But before we step into the seventh place, the most powerful of all, I need to tell you something about men. Because understanding why these touches matter is the key to using them authentically. Men live in a battlefield of expectations. At work, they must perform, compete, succeed. At home, they must provide, protect, lead. In society, they must appear confident, capable, unshakable. And so, they build armor, layer upon layer, until even they forget how to feel without it. But armor comes with a cost. It numbs the heart. It silences the boy inside who once knew how to receive love without earning it. Every man carries that hidden boy. The child who once felt safe in his mother's arms. The teenager who longed to be accepted. The adult who secretly aches for a love that doesn't demand performance. And here's the truth. When you touch these 7 spots with real presence, you awaken that forgotten part of him. You remind him of something he cannot put into words, something he didn't even know he was missing.
That's why these gestures are not tricks. They're not strategies. They are acts of healing. But the 7th place is the one that goes deepest, the one that rewires his memory of you forever. The 7th place is the hollow at the collarbone, right where the bone meets the sternum. Why here? Because this is where breath lives, where the inhale meets the heart. Anatomically, it is one of the closest points to the heart without being overtly sexual. Psychologically, it is a doorway to what Jung would call the inner child. It's the part of him that still remembers what it felt like to be cared for without condition, to be loved without needing to give something back. One of my patients, a successful 53-year-old executive, cold and distant, told me something astonishing. His wife began kissing him gently at the collarbone when he came home from long days. And one night, he broke down in tears. He told me, "It feels like she presses a button I didn't even know existed. Like for the first time in decades, I can just be." That is the power of this touch. It doesn't just awaken desire, it awakens home. But listen carefully. These touches do not work if used like tactics. If your intention is to manipulate, he will feel it. Men, especially mature men, sense authenticity instantly. The difference between a manipulative kiss and a transformative kiss is intention. One seeks to get something. The other seeks only to give. And men respond only to authenticity, not because they're analyzing, but because the unconscious recognizes truth. That's why before touching him this way, you must ask yourself honestly, am I doing this to get something? Or am I doing this because I want to love without conditions? Because when your intention is pure, the transformation is not just in him, it is in you. I have seen entire relationships reborn through these gestures. Couples who thought the spark was dead, suddenly finding themselves falling in love again. Why? Because this kind of love bypasses logic. It doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It goes straight to the unconscious, where true transformation lives. And once you touch that place, he will never see you the same way again. You will not just be his partner. You will be his sanctuary, the place he comes back to remember who he really is beneath all the masks. Now, imagine this. You've learned the 7 doors. You've seen how they open a man's heart. But what if I told you there's something even deeper? What if the true key to unforgettable love is not just where you touch, but how you exist in his presence? In the next part, I will reveal the secret that ties all of this together. A truth about silence, about presence, about love without words. And when you understand this, you will hold the kind of power that doesn't just capture a man's attention, but transforms his entire world.
So far, we've uncovered the 7 doors. We've seen how each place carries meaning, how each kiss awakens something hidden within him. But here's the truth. Even if you master all 7, something will still be missing unless you understand the invisible force behind them. Because touch without presence is just mechanics. Words without heart are just noise. What makes these gestures unforgettable is not technique. It's who you are being while you give them. Let me tell you about silence. In today's world, silence feels awkward. We fill it with chatter, with scrolling, with constant stimulation. But in intimacy, silence is where the soul breathes. A man can hear thousands of compliments, but if your touch is empty, they evaporate. A man can endure countless arguments, but if he feels your presence in silence, he stays. Because silence reveals something words never can. It reveals whether you're truly there. I once worked with a couple on the brink of divorce. They had tried everything, counseling, books, date nights. Nothing worked. Until I gave them one simple exercise. 10 minutes a day. Just sit together in silence. No phones, no words, just presence. At first, they resisted. It felt unbearable. But then, something shifted. One night, the husband told me, when she sits with me in silence, it feels like the first time in years that she's not asking me for something. She's just with me. Do you see? That's the missing key. Presence. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Presence is the reaction. It's not about filling his mind with clever words. It's about filling the space with your essence. When you touch him with presence, when you kiss those 7 places with nothing but pure attention, he doesn't just feel desire. He feels recognized. And recognition is the deepest hunger of the human heart. Think about it. Every man you've ever known has been measured by his performance, his income, his body, his achievements. From the playground to the boardroom, he's been told, you are only as good as what you do. But what happens when he meets someone who says, with every gesture, you don't need to do anything. You are enough right now. It breaks him open. It confuses him. It humbles him. And ultimately, it frees him. Because for the first time, he can put down the armor. He can stop fighting. He can stop performing and just be. That is why presence is more powerful than any technique. Now, let's connect the dots. When you kiss the forehead, you soothe his thoughts. When you touch his palms, you honor his giving. When you kiss the nape of his neck, you awaken his vulnerability. When you touch his chest, you honor his heart. When you kiss his waist, you cradle his fragility. When you touch his temples, you quiet his storms. When you kiss the collarbone, you awaken his inner child. But presence is what makes each of these gestures unforgettable. It's not the map, it's the fire that lights the map. Let me give you a vision. Imagine one evening. You don't prepare a speech, you don't demand, you simply sit next to him. You place your hand gently on his chest. You breathe with him. And when the moment feels right, you kiss his collarbone softly, silently. No words, no expectation. Just presence. That one moment can shift the course of your relationship more than 1,000 conversations. Because words may persuade, but presence transforms. And here's something most people never tell you. When you love this way, you're not only healing him, you're healing yourself. Because giving unconditional love awakens your own forgotten parts too. The parts of you that were once told, you're too much, or you're not enough. The parts of you that long to be accepted just as you are. When you give presence, you become presence. And that radiance transforms you both. So the question is not, where should I kiss him? The question is, who am I being when I kiss him? Am I distracted, mechanical, performing? Or am I fully here, heart open, nothing hidden? Because when you show up fully, the smallest touch becomes unforgettable. Let me leave you with this final truth. The human heart does not remember grand speeches. It does not remember elaborate strategies. It remembers moments. A single kiss on the forehead before sleep. A hand held in silence after a long day. A breath shared in the dark when words are no longer enough. Those are the moments that outlive time. Those are the moments that make love unforgettable. So, the next time you are with him, don't just think of the 7 spots. Think of the space between. Think of the silence. Think of the presence. And then, watch how his world changes. Because in the end, love is not about how many words you say.
It's about how deeply you can be with someone without needing to say anything at all. That is the secret. That is the gift. That is unforgettable love.